The lower decks of Station Meridian reeked of desperation and decay. Marcus Kane pulled his coat tighter as he navigated the maze of corroded walkways, his environmental scanner beeping softly in the humid air. Another routine check of the waste. Processing levels. Though nothing about this place felt routine anymore, the sound stopped him cold. Not mechanical grinding or the usual hiss of ventilation, but something organic. Desperate. He followed it through a service corridor until he found her. She huddled in an alcove between two massive coolant pipes, her skin a luminous blue-green that seemed to glow despite the grime covering her. Her hair, silver-white and matted, fell like a curtain around her thin frame. She wore nothing but strips of torn fabric, and when she looked up at him with eyes like liquid starlight, Marcus felt his world shift. "Please," she whispered, the word barely audible above the station's mechanical heartbeat. "Don't report me." Marcus had seen trafficking victims before during his years as a colonial rights advocate. But this was different. She wasn't just afraid. She was resigned, as if kindness was a concept she'd forgotten existed. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, crouching down slowly. She flinched at his movement, pressing herself deeper into the shadows. "What's your name?" She stared at him for a long moment, as if processing whether the question was genuine. "They called me Specimen 47, she finally said. "I don't remember my real name." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He'd read the reports about illegal alien trafficking, the dehumanization, the systematic erasure of identity, but seeing it personified in this ethereal being made his chest tighten with rage and something else, a protective instinct he hadn't felt in years. "That's not a name," he said gently. "That's a number. You're not a specimen." She tilted her head, studying him with those otherworldly eyes. "Then what am I?" "You're someone who deserves better than this." He slowly removed his thermal jacket, holding it out to her. "Someone who deserves safety." She stared at the jacket as if it might bite her. When she finally reached for it, her fingers, long and elegant with the slightest webbing between them, trembled against the fabric. The moment she wrapped it around herself, something in her posture changed. Not confidence, but the faintest glimmer of hope. "Why?" she asked. Marcus met her gaze steadily. "Because everyone deserves compassion. Even here in the worst parts of the galaxy, that hasn't changed." She was quiet for so long he wondered if she'd retreated back into herself. Then, barely audible, "I used to swim in crystal pools on my homeworld. The water sang when you moved through it." The image she painted, this beautiful creature gliding through singing waters, contrasted so sharply with her current state that Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. Not pity, but recognition. She was sharing something sacred with him, trusting him with a memory when trust had probably cost her everything before. "What would you like me to call you?" he asked. For the first time, her lips curved in the ghost of a smile. Something that means beginning again. Marcus's quarters weren't much, a small efficiency unit in the station's residential sector, but they were clean, warm, and most importantly, secure. As he led her through the corridors, he noticed how she moved, fluid despite her obvious exhaustion, alert to every sound and shadow, a predator's awareness wrapped in prey's vulnerability. "This is it," he said, palm coating the door open. "It's not much, but..." She stepped inside and immediately moved to the small viewport, pressing her palm against the transparent aluminum. Beyond lay the vast emptiness of space, stars scattered like scattered pearls. A single tear traced down her cheek. "I forgot how beautiful darkness could be," she whispered. In the holding cells there was only artificial light. Harsh, constant. It burned through your eyelids when you tried to sleep. Marcus felt that familiar surge of protective anger, but he pushed it down. She needed calm, not his rage. "You're safe here. The door locks from the inside, and I'm the only one with override access." She turned from the viewport, taking in the small space, the narrow bed with its thermal blankets, the tiny galley, the shower alcove. Her gaze lingered on a small shelf lined with potted plants from various worlds. You keep gardens from dead planets, she observed. Genetic preservation, he explained. Sometimes it's all that's left of entire civilizations. She moved closer to examine a delicate flowering vine with bioluminescent blooms. This is from Aquatica Prime. I recognize the light pattern. Her voice carried a note of wonder. We had these in the sacred pools. Your aquarian? Marcus asked, pieces clicking into place. The webbed fingers, the luminous skin, the way she moved like water given form. She corrected softly. Aquatica Prime was sanitized 3 years ago. Resource extraction, they said. The crystals in our pools were valuable. Marcus's blood chilled. He'd heard about the Aquatica incident. An entire aquatic civilization wiped out for mining rights. Officially, they'd claimed the planet was uninhabited. How did you survive? I was off-world when it happened. A cultural exchange program. Her laugh was bitter. I was studying human literature, learning about your concepts of love and hope. Ironic, isn't it? She touched the vine's glowing petals with reverent fingers. When I tried to return home, I found out there was no home to return to. That's when the traders found me. Grief makes you careless. Marcus moved closer, careful not to crowd her. What did you study? In the exchange program? Poetry, mostly. I was fascinated by how humans could create beauty from pain. She looked at him with those starlight eyes. I wrote my thesis on the concept of emotional resonance in human romantic literature. The irony wasn't lost on him. This being who'd studied human love had been reduced to chattel, stripped of dignity and hope. But there was something else in her revelation, something that made his pulse quicken. She understood the human heart, perhaps better than most humans. What was your favorite poem? He asked. She was quiet for a moment, then began to recite in a voice like liquid music. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds. It is the star to every wandering bark. Shakespeare, Marcus recognized. Sonnet 1:16. I memorized it because I wanted to understand what permanence meant to your species. She looked down at her hands. Your literature taught me that love could be a choice, not just an instinct, that it could persist through transformation, through loss. Standing there in his small quarters, watching her find wonder in a single preserved flower, Marcus realized he was beginning to understand what she'd studied. Because looking at her, this luminous, broken, beautiful being who'd maintained her capacity for wonder despite everything, he felt something shift in his chest. Something that felt suspiciously like the first stirrings of the very thing she'd once studied. 3 days passed in careful routine. Marcus would leave for his shifts, ensuring she had food, entertainment, and most importantly, privacy. When he returned, he'd find her by the viewport or tending to his small garden with an intuitive grace that spoke of deep connection to living things. She'd begun to eat more, her luminous skin regaining some of its natural radiance. But it was the small changes that captivated him. The way she hummed softly while arranging the plants, how she'd curl up in the corner chair with one of his books, her lips moving silently as she read. You never told me what you'd like to be called, Marcus said on the 4th evening, settling into the chair across from her. She looked up from the volume of poetry she'd been reading. I've been thinking about that. In Aquarian culture, names are earned through significant moments, transformative experiences. What would this experience be called? She considered this, her fingers tracing the book's worn cover. Sereth. It means the moment when deep waters finally reach the surface. Sereth, Marcus repeated, loving the way the syllables flowed. It's beautiful. It's what this feels like, she said, meeting his eyes. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm surfacing. That night, as Marcus lay on the narrow couch he'd insisted on taking, he heard her singing. Not words, but a melody that seemed to resonate in his bones. Haunting, ethereal, filled with longing, it was the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard, and it made his heart ache with an emotion he was afraid to name. In the morning he found her in the shower alcove, not bathing but floating. She'd filled the small space with water and was suspended, Within it, her hair fanning out like liquid silver, her skin glowing with its natural bioluminescence. She looked like a goddess, a creature of myth and starlight. "I'm sorry," she said, quickly draining the water when she noticed him. "I needed to remember what it felt like." "Don't apologize," Marcus said, his voice rougher than intended. "You don't have to hide who you are here." She studied his face, searching for something. "You're not afraid of me." "Why would I be afraid?" "Because I'm not human. Because my kind were labeled as dangerous when it suited your government's purposes." Her voice carried old pain. "Because looking at me like that, the way you just did, means you see me as more than just another refugee to help." Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. Had he been that obvious? "Sareth, I studied human romantic literature for 2 years," she continued, stepping closer. "I know what that expression means. I wrote papers about it. He should step back, maintain professional distance." She was vulnerable, traumatized, dependent, on him for safety. But when she reached out and touched his cheek with her fingertips, soft, cool, electric, he leaned into the contact instead. "Is it wrong?" she whispered. "To feel something beautiful in the middle of all this ugliness?" "No," he breathed. "It's not wrong." She studied his face with those luminous eyes. "In the trafficking facility, they told us we were animals, objects, that we'd never be anything more." Her thumb traced along his jawline. "But when you look at me, I remember what it feels like to be seen as a person, as a woman." Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. "You are a woman, a brilliant, beautiful, strong woman who survived something unspeakable and still has room in her heart for wonder." Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness but of something deeper, recognition, hope. "I haven't felt desirable in so long," she admitted. "I forgot I could be anything other than broken." "You're not broken," Marcus said firmly, covering her hand with his. "You're healing, there's a difference." She leaned closer, her forehead nearly touching his. "Show me," she whispered. "Show me what it feels like to be cherished instead of owned." Marcus pulled back slightly, his hands framing her luminous face. "Are you sure? We don't have to." "I'm sure," Sareth said, her voice steady despite the vulnerability in her eyes. "For the first time in years, I'm making a choice because I want to, not because I have to survive." He searched her face, looking for any hint of doubt or trauma response. Instead, he found quiet determination and something else. Desire, genuine and unhurried. When she rose on her toes and brushed her lips against his, the kiss was soft, experimental, like she was rediscovering what intimacy could feel like when it wasn't taken. "Your skin," Marcus murmured against her mouth, marveling at the subtle luminescence that seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. "It's like touching starlight." She smiled, the first truly joyful expression he'd seen from her. In Aquarian culture, bioluminescence responds to emotion. The deeper the feeling, the brighter the glow. As if to prove her point, her skin brightened, casting ethereal patterns across the small room. Marcus traced the flowing lines of light that cascaded down her arms, fascinated by the way they intensified under his touch. "What does this pattern mean?" he asked, following a spiral of light across her collarbone. "Joy," she whispered. "Wonder. It's been so long since I've glowed, like this." They moved together slowly, carefully. Every touch was a question, every response an answer. Marcus marveled at her alien beauty, the way her hair seemed to float even in normal gravity, how her skin felt like silk over steel, the musical quality of her size. But it was more than physical wonder. It was the way she watched his face, studying his expressions with the same intensity she'd once brought to poetry. How she whispered his name like a discovery. The trust she showed in her vulnerability, choosing to share this sacred part of herself with him. "In my thesis," she said as they lay intertwined afterward, her skin still glowing softly, "I wrote about how human poets described love as transformation. two becoming one, temporary transcendence of individual existence. Marcus pressed a kiss to her temple, tasting the faint salt-sweet flavor of her skin. What did you conclude? That it was metaphor. Beautiful but ultimately impossible. She turned in his arms to face him. I was wrong. What just happened, it was exactly what they were trying to describe. Her honesty, her willingness to be intellectually and emotionally naked with him, moved Marcus more than the physical intimacy had. You're remarkable, he said. Your strength, your capacity for hope after everything you've endured. I'm not strong, she interrupted. I'm terrified. Every moment I expect this to be taken away. You to realize I'm too damaged, too alien, too much trouble. Marcus cupped her face in his hands. Look at me. Really look. When her starlight eyes met his, he continued, I'm not going anywhere. This isn't charity or temporary kindness. What I feel for you. What do you feel for me? She asked quietly. The words caught in his throat. Too soon, too intense, too impossible given their circumstances. But looking at her luminous face, seeing the hope and fear warring in her expression, he realized honesty was the only gift that mattered. I'm falling in love with you, he said, with your mind, your resilience, your capacity for beauty despite everything you've survived, with the way you hum while you tend plants, and how you float in water like you're dancing with gravity itself. Her glow intensified, patterns of light racing across her skin like aurora. In Aquarian culture, she said, voice thick with emotion, we have a saying, love is the current that carries us home. I thought I'd lost my home forever. Maybe home isn't a place, Marcus suggested. Maybe it's choosing to build something beautiful with someone else. She kissed him then, deep and grateful and full of promise. Against his lips, she whispered, then let's build something beautiful. 2 months later, Marcus stood before the Colonial Rights Commission, Cyrith beside him in a flowing dress that complemented her ethereal beauty. She no longer glowed with the frantic patterns of trauma and healing, but with the steady, warm light of contentment. The evidence is clear, Marcus addressed the panel. The trafficking operation on Station Meridian was extensive, with connections to several colonization efforts that deliberately misrepresented inhabited worlds as uninhabited. Commissioner Hayes leaned forward. And your certain specimen, excuse.
Me, Ms. Sarith, can provide reliable testimony? I can speak for myself, Sarith said, her voice carrying the musical quality that had first captivated Marcus. I have detailed knowledge of their operations, including recorded confessions and
transport manifests. Her testimony was precise, devastating, and delivered with a calm strength that impressed even the skeptical commissioners. Marcus watched her with pride and love, marveling at how she'd transformed from the broken creature he'd found in the station's depths to this poised, powerful woman demanding justice for her people. Later, in their new apartment overlooking the capital's crystal gardens, they celebrated the commission's decision to investigate and prosecute the trafficking ring. You were magnificent, Marcus said, pulling her into his arms. Absolutely magnificent. Sarith's skin glowed with happiness. I never thought I'd see justice for Aquatica Prime. My people's deaths won't be meaningless anymore. What happens now? Marcus asked. The commission offered you a position as a cultural liaison. Full citizenship, protection, a chance to help other refugees. She was quiet for a moment, looking out at the garden where bioluminescent plants from dozen worlds created a tapestry of living light. I want to accept, but I also want. She turned to face him, vulnerable despite her newfound confidence. I want to build that beautiful thing we talked about. With you. Marcus's heart swelled. I was hoping you'd say that. He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small device that projected a holographic display, architectural plans for a research facility. I've been working on something. A center for xenobiological preservation and cultural exchange. A place where refugees can heal while helping preserve the knowledge and beauty of lost worlds. Sarith studied the plans, her glow intensifying as she understood the scope of the project. It's like a garden, she breathed. A place where things that were thought lost can grow again. I can't think of anyone better to help me run it, Marcus said. If you want to, that is. Instead of answering with words, she kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into the connection. When they broke apart, she was glowing so brightly the room looked like it was filled with liquid starlight. In Aquarian culture, she said, we have a bonding ritual. Two people float together in sacred pools, sharing breath and light until their bioluminescence synchronizes. It represents the choice to swim through life as one current. Marcus smiled. Are you proposing to me? I'm proposing we choose each other, she said, every day and every way, that we build something so beautiful it honors both our peoples, both our losses, and all the love we've found. Yes, Marcus said simply. To all of it. Yes. As they held each other in the soft glow of her joy, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from the dark depths of Station Meridian to this moment of promise and hope. He'd found her broken and afraid, but she'd saved him just as much as he'd saved her. She'd shown him that love really could be transformative, that two damaged souls could create something luminous together. Outside their window, the crystal gardens sang in harmonic frequencies only those who listened carefully could hear. It sounded, Marcus thought, like the music of new beginnings. The end.